And then another really, really powerful component to Nazism, the religion, is the persecution complex. So it's really difficult to get people to believe in your cause when you frame yourself as a bad guy. Obviously, the Nazis, we see them as the bad guys. They were killing minorities, they were killing Jews, they wanted to invade and take land from all their neighbors. It was pretty easy to see them as the bad guys from the outside. But they were really good at framing things, really good at propaganda. Listen, we're not invading Poland, we're defending ourselves against Poland. And that is how you frame things. And it really helps when you double down on the persecution complex, when we're defending ourselves, we are being attacked, we are being shunned, we are being murdered. Genocide is being committed against you. Join us now, stop the genocide. Very powerful propaganda. In fact, it still actually works to this day. There are far-right groups on the internet that use the exact stuff the Nazis did. And some of it is really powerful and effective, and it works. But with Christianity, again, that was something even they used, right? This whole, the persecuted Christian, the idea that, the Romans are feeding us to the lions, so we just got to hold down and double down on our faith. We got to believe even harder now. So this feeling of persecution creates a lot of sympathy for the movement, for the group, for the people in that group. In fact, you could actually say about the persecution complex that it does a good job of making sympathetic people, maybe people that weren't members but were kind of sympathetic to the cause, it turns them into members. Let's say you are halfway on board with being a Nazi, right? But then you see that the communists murdered Horst Feisel, this famous Nazi. So they murdered him? How could they do that? Those monsters, we need to fight against them. Creates sympathy, and it pushes people in that direction. Maybe a better word would be pulls. Pulls people in. Pulls people into the ideology, gets them to believe, and then they're converted. Then they have been converted. And then with Christianity, they had a very specific word for the people that sacrificed themselves for the cause of Christianity, right? The martyrs. The people that died because they were not willing to give up their beliefs. They were not going to renounce Jesus. They weren't going to say God is fake or, whatever. They weren't going to do it. I would rather die than denounce Jesus Christ. And they went to their grave. A lot of them did. A lot of them were tortured. Very powerful stuff. That's the kind of stuff that can get people to believe in your religion. Say, oh my God, one of Jesus' followers was burned alive. He still wouldn't denounce Jesus. He still continued. He died. That is very powerful. And the Nazis made note of that. And it was even better for the Nazis in some ways. Because people were not necessarily killed or murdered or shunned or persecuted for being a Nazi, but for being a German. And again, it goes back to this whole niche marketing thing, where you need to join us because we're the Germans, we're speaking on your behalf, and we're being persecuted. You're being persecuted for being German. And they took advantage of a lot of these historical events, a lot of these historical trends. Germany kind of had an inferiority complex on the, the big stage of Europe. They felt like they were less than France. They felt like they were less than the UK. And they should have been at least on equal footing. Right? They had really big industry. They were kind of backward and kind of old school in a lot of ways. But Germany really coulda, woulda, shoulda been a superpower. They were on that way. And then World War I happened. And then it just created this very terrible, the Treaty of Versailles, and you can really view it as the German people being persecuted for things that were not their fault. No German person was responsible for causing World War I. They just didn't, at least the citizens, right? Maybe you can make an argument for people in the government, fair game. But the government is the government and the people are the people. They're two different things. And the German people, right? Some 10-year-old kid named Hans, living in northern Germany, that kid had to suffer because his dad died in World War I. And then the country had to pay these massive reparations, so Hans grew up starving. And then by the time he's an adult, the Nazi party is around and saying, hey, we've been persecuted because we're Germans, because other races hate us. They know that we're better than them. So we're going to get revenge. We're going to undo the Treaty of Versailles because we're being unduly persecuted. And then we're going to get revenge. We're going to get payback. That is exactly why Nazism was so powerful. So powerful. So if you ever sit back and wonder how people could get on board with such a radical, fanatic ideology, I mean, you got to think about all these things they had in their favor. Because the Treaty of Versailles was the best thing that ever happened for the Nazis. Because without it, you don't have the persecution complex. Without the persecution complex, you probably don't get a lot of people to join in your crazy ideology. You don't get a lot of people to sympathize with it. So, historical trends, these events, they matter. They really do matter.